Welcome to my channel, Sella Buzz. For many years, Pastor John Hagee has been a towering parent within the global of evangelical Christianity, along with his fiery sermons Unwavering Guide for Israeland, a ministry that spans tens of millions of followers. Hagee has emerged as a household name. In non-secular circles, however, behind the pulpit and the general public persona, whispers of controversy and hypothesis have accompanied him like a shadow. What secrets and techniques lay under the surface of this charismatic preacher's life? What truth shaz he saved hidden from his congregation inside the world at 84 after years of silence and deflection? Pastor John Hagee has eventually come forward to cope with the rumors, the doubts, and the questions that have lingered for see you later. What he famous is not just a confession, it's a revelation that could reshape the entirety. We notion we knew about him. Are you prepared to discover the reality? Theramers were swirling for years. Was Pastor John Hagee the man of God he claimed to be or became? Their greater Thestery critics point to his arguable statements, his lavish lifestyle, and his political alliances, as evidence of hypocrisy. Supporters, at the other hand, defended him as a devoted servant of the Lord, a person who had devoted his lifestyles to spreading the gospel. But the questions continued, and the hypothesis grew louder with every passing year. Then, in a stunning flip of activities, Hagee sat down for a special interview with a primary news outlet. The placing changed into intimate, a quiet room in his San Antonio megachurch, Cornerstone Church. The cameras rolled because the interviewer requested the question that had been on every person's mind. Pastor Hagee, in spite of everything these years, what is the only aspect you have in no way informed your congregation? Hagee paused, his face an aggregate of emotion for a moment. It seemed as although he may deflect as he'd accomplished so regularly before. However, then, he leaned ahead and began to talk. There are matters I've finished in my lifestyles that I'm not pleased with, he admitted. Selections I've made, words I've spoken, that I now see were wrong. I've spent years looking to justify them, to explain them away. But the fact is, I've made mistakes, and it is time. I personal. As much as them. The admission became shocking now, not just due to what he stated, but because of the raw honesty in his voice. This turned into, now not the polished, assured preacher the International had come to recognize, to actually understand this moment, even though one has to go back to wherein it all started. John Hagee's journey to turning into one of the maximum influential pastors in America becomes something. But ordinary. Born in 1940 in Baytown, Texas, he grew up in a religious Christian family. His father, William Ball Hagee, changed into a pastor, and his mom, Vodi Sweek Hagee, turned into a homemaker who instilled in him a deep love for the Bible from an early age. Hagee felt known as to ministry, and by the time he was a youngster, he became already preaching at local church buildings. But his course to achievement was not without its challenges. In the 1960s, Hagee attended Trinity University in San Antonio, where he earned a degree in history and English. He later pursued a grasps degree in academic administration from the University of North Texas. At some stage in this time, he married his first wife, Martha Downing, and the couple had 2 kids. However, the marriage turned into fraught with problems, and in 1975 they divorced, a selection that might later become a source of controversy. Hagee's big break got here in 1975, when he based Cornerstone Church in San Antonio. What commenced as a small congregation quickly grew right into a mega church, thanks to Hagee's dynamic preaching fashion and his capacity to connect with human beings on a private degree. He also began broadcasting his sermons on television, attaining millions of visitors across the UI. By way of the 1980s, Hagee had grown to be a distinguished discern in the evangelical movement, acknowledged for his bold proclamations. His sermons were not simply religious teachings. They have been headline makers, whether or not he turned into speaking, approximately American politics, global international activities, or pop culture. Hagee knew the way to take hold of human beings' attention. His messages were bold, unapologetic, and from time to time, controversial, but they resonated. Hagee's impact didn't forestall on the U.S. border. Through John Hagee Ministries, his sermons reached extra than 200 countries, spanning continents from Africa to Asia, Europe to South America. His message, faith, hope, and an unwavering dedication to Israel. I've usually believed that the gospel is for each person. Hagee said, it does not matter where you're from, what language you communicate, or what you've got done. God's love is common, and so is his message. His support for Israel became a defining pillar of his ministry. In 2006, Hagee based Christians United for Israel SUI, which has seen that grown into one of the largest seasoned Israel organizations in the sector, boasting over 10 million contributors. For Hagee, standing with Israel wasn't just a personal notion, it became a divine calling. Israel is the canary in the coal mine. Hagee often says what occurs to Israel influences the entire international. As Christians, it is our responsibility to face with Israel, not simply because it's the proper component to do, however, as it's what God commands. His bold stance has earned him each praise and grievance. A few see him as a current-day prophet. Enjoyable biblical prophecies, approximately the restoration of Israel. Others argue that his involvement in political affairs crosses the line. Hagee, but stays unapologetic. "You've been referred to as lots of factors over the years," he chuckled in an interview. "However, I've never been called indifferent in relation to Israel. I'm Alan of Route, no preacher with a megaphone, or in Hagee's case, a worldwide broadcast escapes controversy over time. His outspoken perspectives have stirred the pot, on everything from politics and LGBTQ+ rights to quit instances, prophecies, and the function of Christianity in America. Some critics have accused him of anti-Semitic remarks. No matter his unwavering help for Israel, one in every of the most important storms hit in 2008, when then presidential candidate John McCain publicly rejected Hagee's endorsement after a resurfaced video showed the pastor making arguable remarks approximately the Catholic Church. The backlash was swift, and Hagee turned into compelled into damage manipulate mode. "I've made errors," he admitted in a 2010 interview, including "I'm now not best, but I've continually tried to examine from my errors and grow as a person and as a pastor." But studying from the beyond did not forestall Hagee from stepping back into the political spotlight. Whilst the 2016 presidential election rolled round, Hagee threw his full help behind Donald Trump, turning in the invocation at the Republican National Convention. His reasoning: he believed Trump's business history made him the right chief for the USA. Of course not. All of us agreed. Critics accused him of the use of his pulpit to push a partisan schedule, while others puzzled his near ties to certain politicians. But Hagee, ever the directly shooter, remained unapologetic. "I've by no means been afraid to talk my thoughts," he stated. "However, I've constantly tried to accomplish that in a manner this is steady with my faith. My aim has in no way been to win political battles. It's been to strengthen the dominion of God, no matter the controversies. Hagee's effect has handiest grown. His sermons attain millions global. His books fly off the cabinets, and his ministry keeps to make bigger in reach and effect. Yet as his profile grows, so do the questions about his motivations. Is he a preacher first and main, or has his function as a political determined blurred the strains for all the sermons and spotlight moments? There's part of John Hagee's story that many do not know. The battles fought at the back of closed doorways. The early 2000s introduced one of the darkest chapters of his existence, when his wife Diana Hagee became identified with most cancers. For a guy known for his unshakable religion, the information hit like a wrecking ball. It changed into the toughest element I've ever had to face. Hagee admitted, "Looking a person you like suffer like that, it changes you. It makes you question the entirety." On the time, Hagee was leading Cornerstone Church, a 2,000-member congregation in San Antonio, Texas, while also coping with his international television ministry. To the world he turned into powerhouse of faith status organization in his beliefs. However, backstage he became a husband trying to hold it collectively, whilst watching the affection of his life combat for hers. "I had to be robust for Diana, for my own family, for my congregation," he recalled. "But there had been nights when I would just damage down and cry. I felt like I turned into failing everybody, like I wasn't doing enough." For years, Diana battled cancer, and for years Hagee juggled his responsibilities as a pastoral leader and a husband, attempting no longer to let worry consume him. However, no quantity of sermons or scripture should shield him from the load of all of it. It taught me that irrespective of how strong you believe you studied, you cannot do it all to your personal. Hagee reflected, "You need religion, you need prayer, and you need the guide of the humans around you." Fortunately, Diane ultimately recovered, and while the hurricane handed, it left a long-lasting imprint on Hagee's existence and ministry. His sermons carried a brand new depth, his phrases a renewed conviction. He had always preached about faith in difficult times, however now he had lived it in the maximum private manner, viable, and as his affect endured to develop, so did the demanding situations that came with it. Due to the fact if John Hagee had discovered something, it changed into this: faith might also flow mountains, but it doesn't imply the climb may not be brutal. For over 60 years, John Hagee has had one unwavering, consistent in his life: his spouse Diana. Their marriage has been the bedrock of a own family that has grown to include 5 children and numerous grandchildren, each carving out their personal specific paths. However, being a devoted husband and father whilst running a global ministry, it really is, in which the challenge has constantly been Hagee by no means sugarcoats the reality that his relentless recognition on his paintings frequently supposed that own family came to'd. I've usually been so focused on my ministry that I have not always been there for my family the manner I need to, where he admitted. It's something I regret, however I'm seeking to make up for it now. No matter the struggles of balancing work and family, his children have thrived in their very own right. His son Matthew Hagee has stepped into a management role as the senior pastor of Cornerstone Church, sporting ahead the family's spiritual legacy. Meanwhile, his daughter Tish Hagee Tucker has found success as an author and speaker, the usage of her very own voice to encourage others. But Hagee is short to factor out that his kids aren't truly following in his footsteps. They're paving their personal roads. I'm pleased with all my kids, he said. They've each discovered their very own calling, and they're creating a distinction in their own manner. It's all a father should ask for. Preaching on my own wasn't enough for John Hagee. He knew that faith ought to be more than phrases, it should cause motion. That perception drove him to increase past the pulpit and create a humanitarian force. Through John Hagee Ministries over the years, his company has funded countless initiatives across the world, focusing on the entirety from constructing schools and hospitals to presenting disaster relief. In instances of crisis, one of the most profound examples of his humanitarian work, Africa, for over a decade. John Hagee Ministries has been on the ground in some of the most underserved parts of the continent, drilling wells for clean water investment, scientific missions, and presenting training to lots who would otherwise have no admission to the simple necessities. Once I first visited Africa, I turned into crushed through the want. Hagee reflected, however, I was additionally stimulated by using the resilience, the unwavering religion, and the sheer willpower of the people. They reminded me that no matter how hard lifestyles may additionally seem, there is always wish. And wish is exactly what he has been delivering, from constructing schools for children in Kenya to sending clinical resources to hospitals in Nigeria. Hagee's ministry has worked tirelessly to uplift communities. His dedication to Jewish communities global has additionally earned him substantial reputation. In 2019, he changed into commemorated with the Humanitarian of the Year award by way of the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews for his efforts in assisting those in want. But ask Hagee approximately his awards, and he will brush them off like dirt on a church. Pewit's now not about popularity. He stated it is approximately making a difference. If we can assist just one character, then it is all well worth it. Now at 84 years old, Pastor John Hagee is prepared to share something he's in no way spoken about publicly in a unprecedented, no-holds-barred interview with a first-rate news outlet. Hagee pulled back the curtain on his private struggles, his ministry, and the one revelation that has weighed on him for years. I've spent my entire existence preaching the gospel. Hagee admitted, however, there's something I've by no means talked approximately something. It really has been on my heart for a long time. I assume it's subsequently time to share it with the arena. What accompanied became a revelation that left even his maximum unswerving supporters in shock. No matter his commanding presence behind a pulpit, Hagee confessed that throughout his career he has wrestled with uncertainty. There have been times, after I've puzzled the whole thing, he stated, instances. Once I've questioned if I was honestly making a distinction, if I become truly doing what God known as me to do for years. He carried the burden of these doubts, insolence, in no way letting them show inside the international of televangelism. Vulnerability isn't exactly advocated, but in the back of closed doors. Even one of the most influential pastors in America struggled with the very faith he preached, whilst this seasoned Israel stance has long been a cornerstone of his ministry. Hagee discovered that it wasn't only a theological position, it became personal. The turning point came in the 1970s. At some point of a journey to Israel, I became standing on the Mount of Olives searching out over Jerusalem, and I felt this overwhelming feel of peace. Hagee recalled it become like God was speaking me without delay to me, telling me that this was my calling to be a voice for Israel. But perhaps the most surprising admission came when Hagee discovered how he has frequently felt like an interloper in the evangelical community. I've never certainly fit in with the traditional evangelical crowd. Hagee admitted, I've always been a chunk of a maverick, a bit of an insurrection, and that has made me a target for grievance. However, I've in no way let that stop me from doing what I consider is proper, whether or not it become his outspoken assist for Israel, his fiery sermons, or his unapologetic stance on political problems. Hagee has continually walked a specific course. A few recognize him for it. There's criticize him. However, if there is one factor he is in no way performed, it's back off. At 84, maximum people would be considering retirement, perhaps settling into a quiet life of mirrored image. Not John Hagee, I'm now not achieved yet, he said with a decided smile. There is nevertheless a lot work to be executed, so many those who need to hear the gospel. So long as God gives me the electricity, I'll keep going in his plans for the destiny. They're as formidable as ever. Hagee is doubling down on technology, the usage of social media, live streaming, and podcasts to attain an international audience. The sector is changing, and we want to trade with it. He defined social media, streaming, podcasts. Those are the equipment of the destiny, and we're going to apply them to spread the gospel like in no way earlier than for John Hagee. The assignment is a long way from over, and if records has shown something, it's that when he sets his thoughts to something, nothing, not grievance, now not age, no longer even time can stand in his manner. For Hagee, it's now not simply about keeping up with trends. It is about reaching as many people as feasible. With over 8.5 billion people in the international, Hagee believes era is the key to bringing his message to every nook of the globe. His ministry has already embraced live streaming and online sermons. However, he is taking it even further. Plans are in motion to release interactive virtual experiences, a new podcast series, and elevated social media outreach to engage younger audiences. But technology is simplest a part of the plan. Hagee knows that the destiny of the church rests inside the fingers of the next generation, and he's making it a concern to teach them. I've been blessed to have an extended and fruitful ministry, Hagee said. However, I recognize that my time is restricted. It is why I'm focused on mentoring and equipping the following technology of pastors and leaders. They're the future of the church, and I want to make sure they may be equipped through the Hagee Ministries Leadership Academy. He is personally making an investment in young pastors, providing steerage assets and possibilities to serve his aim to elevate up 100 new leaders who will take the message of faith even similarly than he has.